So good morning. Welcome back to returning GCC students. Welcome to GCC for first timers. Glad to have you here. This is Calculus Math 201. We're going to take a quick look at the flowchart just to make sure that everybody's in the right spot. We are here in this yellow course. This yellow course is designed for engineers and hard science majors and math majors, computer science folks, all of that. Assuming that's most of you, but if some of you are in the wrong spot, we want to make sure we get you to the right spot, which is maybe our other calculus course. It's called Applied Calculus. It's for business majors and social science majors and some of the other kinds of sciences that aren't the hard sciences, right? So if you have any question, do you mind moving to a table with fewer people, either up here or in the back? Either way, it would be great. Thank you. So if you are not sure whether or not this is the right spot for you, ask me right after class today, and we will get you in the right spot, okay? Any questions on that? All right, so there are a whole slew of handouts on the table. I just want to make sure that everybody gets one of each. So first, the big packet, and I promise I'm not going to bury you like this every day. These will be the last handouts I give you for weeks. But anyway, the big packet looks like this on the first page, so make sure you have one of those. There are two things that look almost identical. They both say note to students at the top. The only difference on the first page is one of them says project number 1 and the other one says nothing. Make sure you grab one of each of those. And in fact, if you want to label the one that says nothing with project number 2, that might help you figure out which one is which. All right, the one that doesn't say anything on the top of the note is project number 2. So I'm giving you 2 projects here today. Okay, so we got those. Next, this is the thing that some of you guys were working on before we started today, the Pretest Practice version. This is not going to be collected, it's not required, but just something to do to kind of shake off the cobwebs and make sure that you have the prerequisite material to be sitting here in this room. There's that. There is the Math Studio bookmark, which is this guy, so make sure you grab one of these. For folks that haven't been here before, the Math Studio is this room right across the hall. It is a place where you can come in and do homework or work on projects or study. Oftentimes groups of students will meet there as like groups of students from the same class will meet there. And the Math Studio is often staffed by a math faculty member, so a great resource to answer your questions. This green thing is the schedule for when the Math Studio is covered by different math faculty members, okay? So grab one of those. Speaking of the studio, you'll note that on your official schedule, the studio is listed as where you're supposed to be every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 8:30, I think. That is technically not part of the class. We start promptly at 8:40 every day, but we found that if we block off this 8 to 8:30 studio time, it's quite helpful to students who manage to make that part of their regular schedule. So you're welcome to look at that as half an hour extra you can sleep in, and if that's what you need to do, then so be it. But if at all possible, I encourage you to treat that like it's officially part of this class and just make that the routine where you go in and you've done your homework overnight and you've got a few questions and you get them answered there before class. We're not going to be answering a lot of homework questions in here, okay? Any questions on the studio? It is staffed by math faculty. It turns out this semester I'm not in the studio, but my office hours are listed on one of these other documents here, and I'm available a lot. So you won't find me specifically in there, but I'm here for you guys. No, Jean Reese is over there right now, so every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, she's going to be in the math studio 8 to 10. Okay. Any other questions on the studio? Okay, it's real easy to miss this guy. There's this little tiny handout. Officially, we were supposed to include a specific paragraph on our syllabus. I was told this after I had printed my syllabus, so here you go. Okay, and then I think the last document, oh, there's one more. There's the syllabus, which we will talk about very briefly today, but it says at the top MAT 201, so grab one of those. Okay. And then finally, there's one other handout which you don't all need to grab. Looks like a table with some numbers listed in it. Somebody, that one right there. Okay, so this thing right here, you don't need one of these, but I will tell you that we use the 6th edition of a particular textbook by Hughes and Hallett. Anybody know what it costs in the bookstore right now? $88 for renting. To buy a used one, it's $160, $180, $170. So I recognize that textbooks are really expensive. If it softens the blow at all, this one textbook will take you through Calc 1 and Calc 2. Don't know if that helps, but I really do want to help. And I will say that the 5th edition, again, we're using the 6th edition officially, but the 5th edition of that textbook will work just fine. And in fact, what I did and what one of my colleagues is going to do is figure out what the homework assignments are in the 5th edition. So if you choose to go the 5th edition route, you've got the homework sheet right here. So don't grab one of these unless you think you're going to use the 5th edition this semester. If you've already bought the 6th edition and you can return it, I'd encourage you to do so. I went to a particular website. I don't know that I can like really say it out loud because I'm recording here. It's amazing. Can we say that? The 5th edition textbooks were selling, the cheapest ones were $8, including $4 shipping and handling. There are enough 5th editions for everybody in this class and my other class that are all $20 or under, including shipping. Okay? So you could spend less than $20 on the 5th edition and use this thing right here, or you can buy the 6th edition. Okay? Any questions? Hello, Calc 1? Come on in. Any questions on that? Okay, so thank you for bearing with me through all of those announcements. There you go. Okay, so let us jump in to the big packet, which again looks like this on the first page. So the first page is this Cliff Notes version of Calc 1. We're really not going to be referencing it, but if you want kind of a list of checks that we're going to go through, checkpoints that we'll go through throughout the semester, you can come back to that page. But we start on page 2. And we'll start with our daily summary way up here at the top. Could you read the daily summary? Oh, are you on the right page? Big packet, page 2. Great. Could you read the daily summary out loud for us? Thank you. Jump into number 1 here. We're going to start by watching a clip of a soccer goal by Wayne Rooney. So this particular goal that I'm going to show was voted to be the greatest goal in the 20-year history of the Premier League. I'm going to pause this video right now because I don't want any copyright infringement. Bicycle kick, right. Apparently it's pretty tough. So why are we looking at this bicycle kick? All right, so let's move on. Could you read this in an issue part? No, the next guy. Okay, 2,000 degrees per second his foot was rotating. How many degrees in a complete revolution? 360. So did his foot actually rotate through 2,000 degrees? No, right? I mean, not possible. So what are we talking about here? All right, so let's come back to our video. So again, even though clearly not possible to go 2,000 degrees in a second, we can look at smaller and smaller time periods and really hone in on the one moment that we were interested in, the moment of impact in this case, and then extrapolate from there and come up with something that looks laughable, right? 2,000 degrees in a second is just not possible. It's like a Bugs Bunny type number, but it does make sense as long as you're focusing in on a tiny, tiny interval of time. And we're going to end up doing that bunch this semester. So can we move on to part C right there? Yes. Thank you. Okay, so number 2 talks about an Excel file. Now I've got the Excel file on this machine, but the machine was recently updated by IT and my Excel file now moves really slowly. And this is something where I need to see time passing at a constant rate, and it's not happening on this particular machine with this processor at this moment. So I'm just going to describe to you what you would have seen, and then you're going to draw a picture here. So imagine a plant. A plant might grow kind of slowly in the beginning, right? Like from a seed. So the seedling grows slowly in the beginning, and then it grows faster and faster and faster, but then as it reaches its maximum height, it might slow down its growth, yeah? Sort of like a human might do as well, right? Like a baby can grow slowly in the beginning and then faster, faster, faster. You got these growth spurts through maybe your teenage years. And then as you reach your maximum height, maybe it's 5 feet, maybe it's 6 feet, you slow down, right? You don't just keep growing at the same constant rate. So given this information about a flower growing or a person growing, can you graph just a rough sketch right there on those axes, the height of this plant as it grows as time passes? Real rough sketch. And again, the main idea here is you want to picture something that grows slowly in the beginning and then faster in the middle, and then slowly at the end. Okay, first point that I should plot, if we're really looking at this thing as a seed in the ground, meaning it is not above the ground at all, where do we start this graph? Yeah, I mean, if we're looking, yeah, maybe it's underneath for a little while. I'm imagining starting a video, watching one of these nature videos where you see it the moment it pops out of the ground. And so that's what I'm imagining plotting here. And so if it's going to grow slowly in the beginning, I'll give you three options here. That would be a constant growth rate, right? Which is not what we're describing here. There's also this option and this option. Which one, top, middle, or bottom, grows slowly in the beginning? The bottom one, right? So slow in the beginning. So we got something kind of slow here. And then I said it grows faster and faster for a while. And so that's this part kind of in here, where it's growing very rapidly. But then it starts to slow down again. And again, top, middle, or bottom for the ending piece here. Now it's the top one because we got to grow. We're still growing, still going up, but not as fast. So the growth rate is slower, slower, slower. I didn't ask you to draw something like this, but assuming there's some horizontal line up there where the plant never gets taller than that line. What is that line called? Asymptote. Great, horizontal asymptote. Okay, let's move on to part C, and we'll come around here. Could you read C? Yes. Okay, so see if you can put a dot at the spot on your graph where the plant is growing most rapidly. It's going to be in a little bit different spot than on my graph, but that's okay. So for me, it's somewhere around there. It's the part on the graph where the graph is the steepest. And the special point has a name, which we'll see formally in a coming class, but we'll just name it for right now. Does anybody happen to know? It's a three-word phrase I'm looking for. Yeah, inflection point is good. So point of inflection is what I'm going to call it. Point of inflection. I like that phrase quite a bit. If I ever get into like graffiti tagging, like that's going to be me. So if you see this around the town in Greenfield, yeah, and I like the phrase. So the word inflection, you've seen in a non-math sense as well. Like you can have slight inflection changes in your voice, right? Just a really slight change in your voice. And this is a very slight, it's a subtle change in behavior at that spot, right? It's not a lot changing, but there is something that's changing. It goes from growing quicker and quicker to growing slower and slower. It's an inflection point. It's really subtle. Okay, moving on to 3. Deanna.
All of the problems that we have today, among other things, calculus allows us to screens. That's like, and calculus opens the door for us to understand with great precision the behavior of graphs.
Thank you. So moving on to 4, it says we're going to look at some highlights of the syllabus. Honestly, I'm not even going to pull this thing up on the smartboard. I mentioned Yusuf had the question about me in the studio. I mentioned my office hours. They are there, but I just put a few hours here sort of randomly. I'm available a lot, and I'm here because I enjoy working with students. And so come by, come early, come often. Email me, call me, set up an appointment for us to meet in person, right? So official office hours are there, but I'm available a lot more than that. The textbook and materials, it explains just what I said about the 5th edition versus the 6th edition, and then lots of other stuff in this document. The only other thing that I'm going to call your attention to right now, and you'll read through this over the next couple of nights and ask me questions about it Friday if you have any, but I just want to call your attention to the very last page, which is this thing that says tentative course schedule. We're actually going to start every class with a very quick look at this spreadsheet here, which is what you have on your last page. So today is September the 7th. I number all my classes. This is class number 1. There are 2 projects assigned right now. You can see there in column D. There's one of them on something called arbitration and one of them on trucks. Those are the two projects that I've handed out. These two projects are not due until, you can see here, column E, project collected. The arbitration project is due September 28th, and the trucks project is due September 30th. So they're not due for a long time, which might give you like some false sense of security. Oh, I don't need to look at them until the 26th. The reason they're not due for a long time is because I want you looking at them for a long time. If you actually take a look at, for example, one of the projects, just flip inside, doesn't matter which one. But if you just flip inside that very first page, you see this chart here. So this chart is my recommended timeline for how you tackle these projects. These are big projects, which is why they're due 3 weeks from now. And so, for example, we're looking at different projects here. But anyway, if you just look at that chart, it tells you what I want you doing and when. This chart is just my recommendation. You don't need to do anything on these things until you turn them in on these 2 particular days. But trust me when I say if you wait until the night before it's due, you're not going to be happy with the grade that results, okay? It's just on the inside of the very first page. Very first page. Project 2 is the one that doesn't have, it doesn't say anything on top of the note to students. Yeah. No, do you guys not have? Yeah. One of them says project 1 at the top, and the other one doesn't say anything at the top. So they both look the same except for that difference. Did you get one of those? Yeah, that's project 1. Do you have project 2? Yeah, you want to find this thing. It looks exactly the same, but it doesn't have anything on the top. Yeah. Yeah. And you could even put project 2 on the top there. Okay, so let me say, we'll talk about the projects throughout the course. In fact, you'll see here, September 23rd is what we're calling this project check-in day. I have no official agenda on that day. That's going to be a day for you guys to come in and work on the projects with each other. You are encouraged to work with each other on those projects. And I'll be there to answer questions as well. So they're big. I recognize that they are big. But I think that they contribute quite a bit to folks' understanding of the material. So it's going to be a lot of work for you guys, but by virtue of you being able to sit in this class, we think that you're capable. And so again, just try to chip away at them a little bit at a time as opposed to waiting until the last minute, all right? Of the two, the project number 2, which is the one that doesn't say anything unless you wrote project 2 at the top, it's fairly straightforward. And so if you wanted to, like tonight, just look at one of them, maybe look at project 2 just to give you a sense of generally what the projects are about. But I will say that arbitration one, which is called project 1, mathematically, I think it's the simplest project of the 6 that we're going to do this semester. But I think it's the hardest project of the 6 because there is a bunch of reading firmly in the category of social sciences. And so you're going to be out of your comfort zone as you do some reading for that project. All the reading is there in the handout itself. The math is pretty darn straightforward, but it's the reading that's going to get you, which is why we want to make sure that you space it out, give yourself time to process and digest the reading, okay? And I am very much available to answer questions about those projects. The arbitration project is project 1. Yeah, it's just called project 1 on your sheet. Okay, all right, so I think that is good. Let's go on to the next page, which is page 3. And the next part of what we're after today is this thing called the group activities. This is where you're going to be spending the bulk of your time every time we meet. Group activities are never collected, but working and struggling through them with your table mates will increase your understanding of calculus immensely. An answer key usually follows the group activities. I think it actually always follows the group activities. But anyway, there's always answers to these problems. But I much prefer that you check your answers with your neighbors before you check the answer key. I think there's a lot of good that comes from discussing calculus with people that don't quite know what they're talking about. And that's going to be a bunch of us for a bunch of this semester, okay? If your group gets stuck, raise a flag. I'll do laps every day, but if you want me to come over a little bit earlier, then just raise that flag. You're going to be working with your classmates all semester, so I want you to write down the names of the folks at your table in just a second. Once you've introduced yourselves and written down the names of the people at your table, we're going to go tiny bit out of order. It's written over here on the whiteboard. I want you to first do number 2. This is problem 1 that we are looking at here. So introduce yourselves, then turn a couple of pages and do problem 2, and then come back to number 1, okay? All right, we will come back together as a group with just a few minutes left in class, but introduce and then start number 2.